The end of all things is drawing closer and closer, but luckily our pious priest is here just in time for the final showdown. Of course, before he can stop the Dead Three's Machiavellian machinations, he'll have to find ways to get closer to his god, sear just a couple more hordes that get in his way, continue the trend of scorching Sharans who just can't help but be a nuisance, and naturally face the other god-blessed champions that lie in wait. Can our hero overcome all of this to save the world? Well, we got one way to find out. On to the video. A little while after the dawn in the Shadowcurse lands, we find ourselves just a bit of travel away from the big city at last. Midas Goldcrest ain't one for midnight meandering, however, so we hit the hay ready for our journey to near its end. Unfortunately, these Githyanki have no respect for a proper sleep schedule and assault both our dream visitor and Midas while the sun is down along with our guard. They do get some pretty good whacks in immediately, but with the help of Sanctuary, we're not in any real danger as we sprint towards the portal that they're spewing out of. Arriving just in time to see the gruesome Gith break down our dream visitor's defenses, which is the perfect excuse to break out our favorite spell and quite literally get the jump on our foes, who are for some reason fighting friendly intellect devourers. Should we be offended that these devourers don't seem to be interested in our intellect? Well, let's just chalk it up to them not getting the chance. This first skirmish is pretty straightforward as Midas blasts with his radiance, the last brain cat gets clubbed, and the Gith fail to land even a single blow before we totally get them with our super powerful dragon breath and not anything else. Then we head down to where our dream visitor is calling for aid, just kind of standing in the background as the Gith pummel the hell out of a mind flayer, all to rescue what we can feel is undoubtedly the true source of our protection. Turns out this mind flayer, known as the Emperor, is using said Gith's power to protect us, and if he dies, so do we. Surely this can't have been what our god intends for Midas, so we decline to work together. Either way, a fight kicks off, and if we don't kill the Gith, we're as good as dead. Thankfully, they start by focusing on the intellect devourers, letting us jump over to this one on the side and cast Command Halt in an attempt to slow them down, though only one of them fails the save. The Emperor proves why he needed to manipulate us to do his dirty work by getting absolutely clobbered, at least taking the brunt of the focus while we back on our turn use Sunbeam to weaken our foes further. The foolish Flayer even uses Domination on a monk with Stillness of Mind, to which they show their distaste when they get the chance. But come next round, the first of the fist-fighting four flounders to an early fatality. We use our first radiance of the fight to blast a couple of them and get shredding their backs with our guardians, while summoning a spiritual weapon to boot. At this point, the enemy Gith are pretty ineffectual against us since the first one we killed was the only one capable of hold personing Midas, and the rest have too many radiating orbs, especially since another radiant combined with spirit guardians continues to shred away at them, not to mention the odd strength elixir fueled throw speeds the process up. However, when there's only one left, the traitorous Emperor uses the distraction to blast us with chain lightning, and before we can confront him, the last Gith uses our helmet to end himself. Unfortunately, it makes the Emperor think that we're on his side, but well, we do still need his protection for now, so we'll roll with it. Though before Midas goes to bed, he swears on the morning sun that we won't let this man suffer forever. For now though, we head back to camp, see that Aelin must have cleaned up around here, and call it a night at long last. The next morning, we head into Rivington, just outside the city outskirts, and get jumped by Yenna, a child who's lost her mother. After telling her we should go take her to the nearest temple, she lets us know that something odd has happened there, so we add it to our list. Our first stop, however, is for Drogher, a merchant in town who sells us the Hellrider Longbow, essentially just a +3 boost to our initiative since we can't actually use it properly. He's also, as it turns out, a Sharan. First that lady defending the goblins in the wilderness, then the gauntlet in the mausoleum, now this guy? What's next? A secret underground temple hidden underneath a faux therapy office somehow installed in the city in secret? Surely not. That would be ridiculous. Next up, we swing by the Circus of the Last Days, wherein we delight the townsfolk with more of that music we picked up in our church band back in the day, then talk to Boney of Stony and Boney's Creations to commission a statue of Lathander. It arrives later that night, and they must have gotten confused since it looks like Midas instead, but either way, it gives the Sweetstone features perma buff, basically acting as a permanent bless. Anyways, that's for later. For now, we swing by the Open Hand Temple of Ilmater, another friend of our own deity, and as it turns out, one of his priests has been murdered, and this sham of a celestial cop is blaming it on an innocent refugee. To get to the bottom of this and set things right, we follow the very obvious trail of blood to a trapdoor, head into the basement of the temple where we find a secret exit, inside of which we find ballast murderers quite literally still here. Most of them are melee only, and you know how that one tends to go for folks, though one is a spellcaster. Not a particularly really powerful one, mind you, but hey, it at least casted one spell before running headfirst into our guardians. As if we needed further proof, we find a key to a local room at an inn alongside the murder weapon itself. It's like that cop didn't even try to investigate. Sure enough, following our leads takes us to a secret room in the local flop house, and at last a proper list of old victims and future victims that this ballist cult plans to take out. Midas goes to report his findings to the Hollyphant, who's celebrating a job not done, and when presented with all the evidence we found, all she gives us is a pass to the lower city so we can uproot this cult ourselves. So down comes the drawbridge for our dear Dragonborn, letting him into Worm's Rock Fortress, which was closed for Gortash's coronation to Archduke, an event that we are forced to attend. Mainly just so he can yap to us about working together to kill Orin and then rule the brain. Obviously, that's not gonna happen, but we play along for now so we can take out his Steelwatch police force first. Of course, the first thing we do once we're in the city is head to the Stormshore Tabernacle, where we bust into the basement since the man in the sky lets us know he's got a present for us waiting in there. One that we send to camp to ensure we don't trigger the curse on the chest, all in order to grab the Amulet of the Devout, increasing our spell save DC by 2 and giving us 1 extra charge of our channel divinity for even more Radiance of the Dawns. We also take the time to head upstairs and donate properly to our Morning Lord, who in return blesses us with vigor and joy, aka the Anointed in Splendor permanent buff. This bad boy increases all of our saving throws by a +2, making us even tankier. Then we call it a night, say hello to our statue properly, adopt a child in the form of Yenna who still hasn't found her mom, and set out the next day ready to explore the city, almost instantly coming across a group of very obvious cultists lynching our old friend Volothamp. Even if it wasn't our old pal, Midas is never one to turn down the opportunity of purging a few absolutist scum from this world. After all, we get to test out our new triple radiance strategy, which proves to be very effective, almost killing all of them outright entirely. Once he's saved, our old wizard pal decides to join Camp Lathander again, this time for good. Since we're in the area, we also take a moment to pop into the Steelwatch Foundry to scout it out, finding that the Gondians working for Gortash are being made to do so against their will. A plan to save them begins to form, but for now we settle for stealing whatever isn't nailed down to inconvenience the Boorish Bay Knights. Speaking of cultists, as we get wandering the city, we find a faux therapy office, and our earlier thought strikes us again. To no one's surprise, the lady behind the counter has Radiant Retort, something only a shady Sharon would have. It does mean we can't rely on Spirit Guardians to obliterate them, but between Fireball, our tried and true spiritual weapon, and our brand new destructive wave, we've got other ways to decimate them. Not to mention, the Armor of Agility keeps us protected without radiating orbs, while the Steel Watcher helmet prevents them from blinding us with darkness clouds. Before we head down to the basement to find the leader of this place, we go to rest at camp and find Halsin losing his mind. And there's little we can do as he stabs himself. Oh wait, never mind, it was just Orin come to let us know that she's kidnapped him and will only let him go once we kill Gortash and then duel her to the death over the remaining netherstones. Wait a second, did she just stab herself to make that point? Well, a good thing Volo saw all that go down, because he gives Midas a book on how to kill Baal Slayer for some bedtime reading, granting Slayer knowledge, actually making it easier. Either way, the next day we head into the Sharon Temple awaiting us, kill their sentry Frederick, and then kick off the fight properly. Mainly, we just scorch them all with walls of fire and other fire-based spells, even though only one of them has Radiant Retort, their leader Viconia, who very much so likes to be in the center of the group. We also make sure to walk back each turn, so they're stuck dashing towards us round after round, and we're free to continually fill up this almost perfectly wall of fire-sized hallway. Even when they do get close to hitting us, we still have our warding flare as backup. Before too long, the vast majority of the horde is thinned down to nothing, and we're able to clean up Viconia and her last crony with a necrotic spirit guardians. Earning us Viconia's walking fortress from her corpse, a +3 AC shield with a special damaging shield bash, but more importantly, it lets us reflect projectiles for a couple turns and gives advantage on saving throws against spells while giving spell attacks against us disadvantage. Plus, it's golden, so you know we've got a rocket. To make things even better, we also reach level 10, getting us another cantrip in the form of resistance, and we gain the power to call on our deity with divine intervention. It has a variety of effects, whether to create a weapon, heal you and your allies, or simply do a buttload of damage to your enemies. Unfortunately, we can only use it once, so we'll have to be smart about when we do. Not to mention, we find a sharp shard and mirror further in that we're able to sacrifice some knowledge to in order to get a permanent +2 to our wisdom. Of course, we'd never actually give Shar anything since remove curse can just undo said sacrifice, but we're more than happy to poach power from the wicked god when we can. And now that Midas is fully kitted out, he also takes time to buy a new fit to properly show his devotion to his glorious glowing god. In touch with Lathander more than ever, our senses expand, letting us know this city is filthy with undead that needs purging, which is how we end up at Cazador Sar's palace. A vampire lord who isn't even trying to be subtle with his decor, or his door for that matter, which bars our way to wherever he's hiding. So to get to him, first we need to sneak past a dead girl's cursed corpse to read a dictionary, then watch a skeletal guard obliterate himself against us to steal his ring. After we throw open the door, we find a bloody room full of critters of all sorts, all under the vampire's control. Naturally, this means they've all gotta go, and most of them kindly oblige with our guardians. A spattering of the rest get incinerated with radiance, and it ain't too hard to finish off the stragglers. Then we simply head into the nearby elevator, which takes us directly down to the profane vampire himself in the midst of using a wicked ritual to make himself even more powerful. And so a massive showdown begins, with Midas going first thanks to a vigilance elixir. To kick things off, we cast daylight on our weapon to counter the vampire, then walk into his legendary action, which damages us way more than I was expecting. But thanks to a speed potion we had active beforehand, we're able to zoom across the arena and heal up. Just enough to avoid getting one-shot by the awfully rude Tsar, and his goons ain't hitting us at this point either. So when it's back to us, we recast Spirit Guardians, heal up another tad, sneak our way past the goons, down a necrotic resistance elixir, and take out the first ritual source, a certain zombie Astarian. Not that it actually stops the big lord from gaining the benefits from this source for some reason, that is to say increased move speed, an extra bonus action, more damage, and temp HP. To end our turn, we throw down haste spores, ensuring we don't go lethargic when our speed potion runs out. We have once again just enough HP to get us to next round, and if it wasn't clear already, the goons are nothing to worry about this fight. Our opponent seems to agree as well, since for some reason on our turn he uses a legendary action to kill his own guys. Stealing the extra bonus action for ourselves means we get to heal up a bunch before sauntering on over next to Kazi, breaking his concentration and ending our turn on a ritual source that passively heals us. At this point, the big guy resorts to swinging at us in melee, once again for no discernible reason, and it does not go well for him. It's not like he's out of spell slots either, he just seems to prefer this. Of course, even when he does try to leave, we're not gonna let him that easily. Soon, it's just Chatterteeth as his only goon remaining, and he just keeps using wisdom save based spells on us, which isn't very smart either. From here, we just continue bullying old Cazador, take a moment to incinerate Chatterteeth for propriety's sake, and finish things off with a Radiance of the Dawn. Things aren't properly finished, however, until we jab him in the heart in his coffin, and then use his staff to blow up all the poor spawn he's cursed throughout the years, sending them hopefully to somewhere better. Unfortunately, on our way out, we find the parents of said spawn, but they do understand that peace was the best thing Midas could afford them. Before we get to our next hunt, we take a moment to intimidate some local thugs, buy some Terrazul in their guild hall, which is basically a speed potion that you can use for free. Then we head into the Elfsong Tavern basement, clean out their rat problem lickety-split, head into the next room where we clean out their Githyanki problem even lickety-or-splittier, after which we head to the beach to bask in the glory of our sun, only to find a very rude drug trafficker who naturally also meets a similar fate as to all those who try and murder Midas under the full light of the sun, all of which serve to give us level 11, granting access to our most powerful spells such as Hero's Feast, which provides a whole myriad of effects, or, hear me out, we can just use the 6th level spell slot for even more spirits in our guardians. With all that out of the way, we can return to hunting heretics, continuing with the wizard Loroakin, who we hear has been hunting our friend Dame Aelin to use her immortality for himself. After confirming our suspicions, we decide to do him one better, coming back with a Deva summon, spirit guardians, and the daughter of Selune herself. Of course, we let Dame Aelin get a few licks in,
Flaccid.
and a showdown begins. Starting off, we get our Deva to oil up to make sure he hits more often, not that he seems to notice. Then we dash on over to give him a helping hand, summon a spiritual weapon, then pass it to the baddies, most of whom miss their attacks. The Loroakin himself at least dashes into our guardians before casting a mirror image. Aelin on her turn torches Loroakin's halfling henchman, who must have been getting paid really well while getting started on one of the elementals. Back to the Deva, and this time we get him swinging on Lorroakin, triggering his elemental retort, which we're hoping uses his reaction, but we find out the hard way on our turn that it does not. Thankfully, the enemies seem insistent on being entirely useless, besides Lorroakin, who fireballs Midas, the fireball-resistant golden dragonborn. No stress for our floundering foes though, cause wherever there is uselessness to be had, the Night Song is here to show off the upper limits of such cases. However, our other angelic ally makes up for it by putting an end to the only real threat on the battlefield. Since the remaining Myrmidons just damage us by swinging weapons, they're no issue to clean up, and Selune's daughter even puts in some good work herself, though she still can't help herself from stealing the final blow yet again, even at the cost of breaking her paladin oath and losing a piece of her. Continuing on, we get searching for the next source of undead in the city, and it leads us to this mansion wherein we meet Mystic Carrion, a mummy lord who is unfortunately immortal until we track down his organs. But now that we've met the man and know his weakness, our search leads us to this beach house, and wouldn't you know it, inside the closet is another undead who of course we purge. Inside his stomach, as if by divine providence, is Carrion's heart, the only piece we really need to destroy to kill him, but we might as well weaken him further. Meaning off we go, finding ourselves in the cemetery, breaking into a mortuary cellar, letting us grab his lungs in this tiny jar. The last couple pieces we find by heading into the sewers, convincing a deranged sorcerer to not scorch us alive as part of his buddy's funeral pyre, then entering a passageway in the Undercity ruins, leading to a very obviously cursed room emanating with an undead stench, one that Midas activates by popping open a coffin and kicking off another fight. Triggering this ambush did curse us with spell rot, meaning we would take damage for every spell cast, but since we precast Spirit Guardians and Radiance of the Dawn isn't a spell, this fight is a breeze, especially because the many mummies love using Dreadful Glare, an ability with a DC 11 wisdom save to resist, something our 22 wisdom cleric has no problem with, plus we're still free to cast cantrips. Further in the room, our angelic friend bashes through a fake wall that we spotted, and we grab both the mummy lord's brain and his liver, the last two pieces that we needed. Of course, first we have the honor of blowing them all up and watching the fireworks. Then we're heading back to face the threat himself and find a long-lost twin brother along the way who decided to serve nature instead of Lathander. Anyways, uncanny lookalikes aside, we precast our spells as usual and go to confront Mystic Carrion at last. A shame for him that he's vulnerable to fire damage, and if we stay at a distance, his legendary action gets outranged. Not to mention, both him and all of his goons are insistent on trying to get Midas to fail a wisdom save, which just is not gonna happen. More fireballs certainly are, however, gonna happen. In retaliation, the Mummy Lord uses explosive cloud kill, but a protection from poison that we precasted protects us from the worst of it, while his mummies dash into our guardians. From here, one more fireball takes out most of the baddies, and one more tick of our ghostly guardians takes them out, leaving just the big guy left, who we stick to like flies on carrion, slowly ticking him down over the course of a few rounds. And before you know it, the last major undead threat in the city bites the dust, leaving us free to finally return to the Steelwatch Foundry, break into the back room, and have a quick chat with Gandhi and Xander Tubin, one of the enslaved gnomes making the Steelwatch, who lets us know their families are being held hostage in a secret underwater prison, and so long as they're not free, the people here cannot rebel. Naturally, we get searching around the docks for any secrets, finding a locked warehouse filled with wargs guarding it, who are quickly cleared out to say the least. In this locked warehouse, there is also a secret basement lying under some boxes, and inside said secret basement, we find a secret submarine and its secret pilot, who we easily intimidate into taking us to the Iron Throne. Unfortunately, when we get there, Gordy decides to throw a temper tantrum and blow everything up, meaning we don't have a lot of time to save the prisoners. But we throw on all of our speed-based gear while summoning as many allies as we can, down a flying and speed potion, then enter turn-based mode and pre-dash as much as Dragonbornly possible. As things kick off, we send in our Deva, who as it turns out cannot use levers. He can, however, smack them to free people. Midas does not have this same problem, using his near limitless movement speed to zip around popping open levers, and his actions to help people tied down, including Omeluum, who is here for some reason. Regardless, we keep zipping around and find this prisoner who really wants to get let out. even to the point of walking through solid steel. Magical gnomes aside, we are able to free literally everyone on the very first round, and we spend future rounds using Omeluum, the Deva, and Midas interchangeably to mess with the pursuing guards who really don't care that this place is about to explode, meaning every single captive is successfully rescued, with not a moment to spare either. Now we just have to blow up the factory itself, which is something easier said than done. The revolution starts off well since our AoE is just so good, but the baddies do attempt to blow up all the Gondians, meaning we have to take time to disarm those bombs. Though at the very least, every guard on the top floor dies before they can kill any of our Gondian pals. Unfortunately, the Gondians decide this was too easy and wander outside into the roaming Steel Watch. Not to mention they stand right next to the Watchers right as they're about to blow up, so we have to run in and physically toss them out, only for a different Gondian to decide to 1v1 yet another Watcher on the roof. Thankfully, the Gondians on the main floor finish off the second one, while we go on the roof with a Thunder Wave to somehow save all of these Darwin Award nominees. Downstairs, however, does not go nearly as well for neither the Gondians or the poor opponents who have the misfortune of getting in Midas's way. At the very least, not every Gondian meets a grisly fate, with two of them actually surviving, with no small amount of effort exerted from our hero. Seeing our heroics in action is enough for our Lord of Light to imbue us with the peak of our power, level 12, and with it our final feat, Tough, giving us 2 HP per level for an extra 24, setting our max to a whopping 123. Since everyone else is cleared out, we're free to head into the final room and face Gortash's Steel Watcher Titan. Although the only real concern in this fight are the Hellfire Watchers due to them living up to their namesake, as Hellfire is unavoidable and unresistible damage that hurts for a buttload. With Tough though, we always have enough HP and potions to heal up, and the Titan itself just kind of misses constantly. Spirit Guardians, Radiance of the Dawn, and a few cantrips are all we need to get the Hellfire Watchers themselves blowing up one by one. A similar treatment gets the Titanic piece of scrap metal, deciding to do the same and just get this over with. With our dear friend Xander Tubin's help, we head back to the control console, run like our life depends on it because it does, and get outside just in time to continue the fireworks show. Now that Gortash's Steel Watch is no longer in the way, it's as easy as saying Radiance of the Dawn to fight our way past all of his henchmen hordes before arriving at the peak of his palace ready to throw down. He does get to blast us first with radiant damage no less, but when it gets to us we blow up his protective force field, get right up in his face, and top up our HP. To no one's surprise, most of the enemies spend their turns dashing to us, and the ones that do attack don't manage to connect. To Midas's surprise though, a point-blank Gortash actually does, but one of his defensive barriers malfunctions, giving him vulnerability to most damage types including radiant, so our turn gets even better. The goons continue to be a non-factor, though one of them does shove us around, and if Gortash is only going to be using dazzling rays, that doesn't concern us either. However, next turn when we incinerate all of his friends, he decides to go Super Saiyan, so with a bloodlust trigger we blast him with a sunbeam of our own, knocking him prone. The sole surviving thug from our last turn decides to expedite his journey to join his buddies, and now Gortash is melee only, which at this point you should know how that goes. We even intentionally trigger opportunity attacks to trigger reverberation to knock him prone, so he doesn't even get the chance to use his legendary action. His royal lowness can't even stay off the floor for a full round, and alongside help from his malfunctioning force field giving him vulnerability, we get some really brutal hits in to finish him off. That means Netherstone number 2 and our second of the dead 3's chosen are off the list. As our champion heads back to camp to recoup and recover, we also find a note from Orin telling us where to go next if we're to gain entry to Baal's temple and save Halsin. And this is how we end up in front of Sarevok Anchev, a truly evil Baal spawn that wreaked havoc across Baldur's Gate in centuries past. We've got no idea how he's still alive, but if a champion of Lathander was born to do anything, it's put scum like him down. To start off, Midas runs into his ghostly goons and uses a Radiance, triggering the big man's legendary action, which teleports him next to us and delivers a guaranteed hit. Unfortunately, we don't have quite enough radiating orbs to make Sarevok actually miss us with any regularity, plus the cronies use Heal, Sanctuary, and Haste to buff him up even further. On our next turn, we continue to harass the ghost that's closest to us and find out the hard way that one of them has counterspell when they cancel our cantrip. As always, we top up our HP too. though. At least Sarevok seems more interested in running into our spirit guardians and keeping his sanctuary up than doing anything useful. His buddies follow suit with a warding bond and a miss. This fight is mostly a battle of attrition, and everything we try to do just gets counterspelled, so we're mainly relying on spirit guardians to clean up all the goons over the next few rounds. As each of them goes down, the ball spawn does get permanent buffs, including healing on hit, but he simply does not hit often enough for his health to trend upwards, especially when we start using command to make him skip the odd turn. Eventually, the poor sod realizes how desperately outclassed he is and quite literally jumps to his own death just to be done with it. In the next room, we find Valyria the Celestial once again, and as tempted as we are to leave the corrupt cop here, I doubt our god would think too kindly on it. Either way, using Sarevok's amulet, we're able to track down and open the entrance to Baal's temple, hidden fittingly in the sewers. Sadly, when we find Orin, she ain't too happy that we killed her dad/grandfather, and she takes out her rage on Halsin before transforming into some profane abomination and squaring off against us. With the help of a vigilance elixir, flying potion, and speed potion we took beforehand, we zip to the center of the arena and blast everyone in it not once but twice with destructive waves, knocking everyone performing her ritual prone, cancelling it out before it got a chance to do anything. Then we summon a spiritual weapon and pass our turn. Once again, the thugs here are absolutely worthless, unless they're fighting Scratch, who is also here but tragically not for long. Orin herself does start raising undead now and then, but they're melee only too, so yeah. While the head honcho is focusing on our goons and jumping into falling prone next to us, we decide to do the same and exterminate everyone on her side, so this can be a nice clean 1v1 between God-blessed. But as a melee only enemy who is prone to falling prone, this goes strikingly similar to how our fight with Gordhash went. She just can't do enough damage. The only real difference is we spew out Scorching Rays to trigger reverberation as much as possible. With the last of the dead three having lost their chosen and the final Netherstone in hand, we're ready to take on the Netherbrain, but first we've got one more thing to take care of. That, however, requires us breaking into the local Diabolus place in an attempt to search for a way into Raphael's House of Hope. Luckily for us, not only do they have all the ingredients we need to open a portal to it, but there's also a ritual circle already set up that leads right there. The moment Midas gets inside, we're greeted by the titular Hope, who we can immediately feel is almost a manifestation of the concept. One that is imprisoned here against her will, but she does tell us about a hammer within these halls that can break any chains. She wants us to sneak in and steal it, but in the face of a house of fiends, a cleric of Lathander does not sneak. No, instead we rip and tear and blast our way through, being mindful of their ability to reflect radiant damage once each by using necrotic guardians instead of our usual radiant. Indeed, as the forces of hell set out against us and find us unbreakable, one of the hell spheres that we've come across even tries to flee, finding that the locks put on to trap us in here have sealed its own fate just as well. We even come across a devil that looks an awful lot like Raphael himself, but he goes down all the same just as fast as everyone else. From his corpse, we grab a key that pops open a hidden safe, wherein we find a secret password that will let us get the hammer in the archives. All we need to do is kill our way over there, and it's ours for the taking. Of course, we first need to kill our way past Hope's prison guards too, but they're no concern. These spectators get dang near instantly incinerated, and the imps are all but one-shottable. Not to mention, all this is made easier since we don't need to conserve resources. That is thanks to the boudoir upstairs that restores all of them as much as we would like. Before you know it, Hope is free and Raphael is no doubt on his way. So naturally, we do a little bit of prep, casting every buff spell we can think of, including Aid and Hero's Feast to make our HP as high as possible, and making sure our Deva is here to join in on the fun. Not to mention, we also have Hope and Midas down Vigilance Elixirs, plus Flying and Speed Potions for Midas specifically. And not a moment too late as Raphael at last returns, joined by this lady and our old antagonist Yurgir. Just like that, our penultimate showdown kicks off. Starting off, the Deva triggers Raphael's opportunity attacks to eat his reaction. Then we cast Necrotic Guardians and with the help of Terrazul and Arcalis Glow Ring zip around, triggering everyone's Radiant Reflection. Also, it's not available when we sunder the Heretical using Divine Intervention, plus a destructive wave to deliver further mayhem, and summon a spiritual weapon. Our Deva continues with a speed potion, zipping from soul pillar to soul pillar, whacking them to weaken Raphael. Yrgir, for his part, just kinda dips after taking one look at what we're doing. Meanwhile, Hope gets blasting with divine intervention herself, which for some reason doesn't get used up, so we use TLoZ and do it again. And still, it doesn't get used up, so we use a speed potion and do it a third time, making it just the master of the house left, who certainly tries his best on his turn, though he can't help but watch as on our next set of turns we dismantle almost all of his pillars one by one permanently, and use our reflective shell ability to make his next turn even more worthless as he just shoots himself over and over. The last pillar falls to the Deva while Midas and Hope are busy sleeping off the speed and TLoZ, leaving the big man to flail about, resorting to melee only, something you'd hope he'd know better than to do. Alas, we're free to take the time to switch to our Radiant Guardians again and slowly whittle him down. Even despite him deciding to blow us up again, we just have so much HP that we don't need to worry about it. Our angelic ally does seem to want to finish things up sooner than later nonetheless. After taking a brief moment to bask in a world without Raphael, we decide it's about time we head down to the sewers to track down the Elder Brain once and for all. It is rather large compared to the last time we saw it, and it's a little worrisome that it has the ability to pull us into its psyche, but we have the power of God and the Netherstones on our side, so what do we have to worry? Oh, well, that's not good. Blessedly, the Emperor shows up at the very last second to whisk us away to safety, not that it makes us like him anymore. In fact, we use the chance of being in the Astral Prism again to free Orpheus, much to the Tentacle Terror's chagrin evidently, as he decides to go off and join his arch nemesis in willful slavery despite us. Orpheus ain't particularly happy to see us either, to make matters even worse, but he is at least willing to work together. And even further than that, he's willing to turn himself into a Mind Flayer in order to properly wield the Netherstone so we can defeat the Brain for good. All we need to do is fight our way past all of this, channel the Netherstones on top of the Brain, avoid the Emperor, avoid the dragons, and save the world. And worst of all, embrace public speaking to hype up all of our friends who came to join us in the final showdown. The speech evidently did absolute wonders as we inspire them into heights that Lathander would be proud of, and our buddies get to work in fighting past the small battalion in our way, buying us enough time to start climbing the Brainstalk right as the wicked thing takes off into the sky. When we get to the top, the Emperor himself, now thrall to the Elder Brain, is here to get in our way, and the final showdown kicks off. Starting off, we zip over to the crown with a Dimension Door scroll, use a Misty Step scroll to bait out counterspells from everyone nearby, then have Orpheus use a Globe of Invulnerability and get channeling the stones. We do have to resist a whole bunch of Mind Blasts that attempt to stun us in our tracks, but none of them are able to stop us. We are inevitable as the rising sun as we open a portal back into the Brain's psyche. Once inside, the Gith Prince starts stacking fierce perilous stakes on us, with each one increasing our damage by 15. So with 7 stacks of it, we're able to one-shot, okay, well, we would be if our cast animation didn't get cancelled midway through by his legendary action, but at least with 7 stacks of it, we're able to two-shot the Brain with Scorching Rays. Now that its psyche is sufficiently weakened, we command it to end both itself and all of its dastardly minions and plans alongside it, and wouldn't you know it, a light like the sun is what heralds its end. No light will be as warm as the real thing though, and now that at last there's nothing left to save, our hero can bask easy in its light, until a time comes where again the dark encroaches and the sun is needed once more. But until then, our hero is free to sit back and enjoy the sunset. Thanks for watching the end of another journey, folks. I hope you enjoyed this one. This build was an absolute delight and possibly my favorite one that I've played, despite it being just spamming Spirit Guardians. And as always, a special thanks to our Storyteller tier members, Okankan, Mark Rainbow, That Be Renee, Lumina, El Guardia, Zaplight25, Ramon Standalone, Witch Amy, Shmentai Neko, and Miku.